we are buying fuel at the highest we've ever seen in this country, in the history of Kenya. So let me remind you again, because we are just 11 days away from another review. It is 211 shillings. So 1,000 shillings is not even 4 liters. Sorry, not 5 liters. It's 4 liters and a couple. Diesel is at 202, isn't it? Not 200 flat. Kerosene is 202 shillings. So there's a trend that is essentially coming up now, because if you look at the fuel consumption numbers, petrol consumption has fallen to falls 5% to 1.01 billion liters, and this is a reaction to majority of Kenyans keeping their cars at home as the fuel prices continue to shoot up. So if you look at it, it's fallen 5% to just 1 billion liters, and this particular story essentially is going to hurt the economy. I mean, if you talk about the GDP of the country, then you'll see essentially how it's going to be hurt. And if you look at this, it is the lowest level in more than 5 years, excluding the COVID-19 pandemic period, when majority of people are not moving around. So we essentially had a dip in the consumption of fuel in the country. So you will see exactly what this is. I mean, if you look at where we are, last year, diesel fell by 4% to 1.31 billion compared to 1.36 billion in the same period last year at this particular time. So you would say that this is the lowest consumption that this country has ever seen for the past 5 years. Now, this is essentially what it is, because then, I mean, the laws of economics are quite simple. You have two things. If you reduce the cost of fuel, then you're spurring more use. But if you increase that cost of fuel, yes, you're getting more in taxes, but then you're also hit in terms of less consumption. There has to be a sweet spot, and particularly in the consumption levels of energy in this country. Consumers will adjust, and they seem like they have adjusted. Now, whether the government is fine with how much they're collecting from this, even after the consumption has fallen by in the worst levels in 5 years, we're gonna see. But consumers have spoken. Are you driving? Or are you one of those who've parked their cars at home? Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiage. Thank you very much for choosing to begin your day with us right here on the Morning Drift. So much to talk about today. For now, we take a tiny breather. We'll be taking you straight to your newspapers this morning, but we get to see exactly what it is you're waking up to. Let's then look at the main issues that you're focusing on this morning on the Daily Nation. Two stories are very, very important here. You've got to look at how RUTO is now talking about stopping the party for joyriders, cost cutting. Is talking about how essentially it's only 2 people going to travel. He's saying that we used to be traveling first class, staying in swanky hotels and getting generous allowances for their shopping. Many a state officer or civil servants would often fight to be a part of a delegation heading out of the country. But all this will now come to an end after President William Ruto issued a new directive suspending non-essential travel while limiting delegation sizes, including for the presidency, and trimming travel budgets. Will the president succeed this time around? That story on pages 6 and 7. On pages 4 and 5, you're going to read a story on how COG says that we need to review impeachment law. That is why Guru urges after winning another term as a as a Council of Governors boss. And COVID-19 vaccine pioneer scientist win Nobel Prize for medicine. That story covered on page 3. And by the way, Boma's talks in limbo as KK's meals keep hearing. A particular story covered on page 7. Good. That's why you're waking up on the on the Daily Nation. So we cross over then to what it is that you're waking up on. The Standard. This is what they're saying: save us from salary shame. This is according to civil servants. The Public Service Commission, in a memorandum to the National Dialogue Team, has said public servants can no longer make ends meet. In some instances, up to half the employees take home less than a third of their pay. That story covered on page 2. And the rising cost of living has also impacted negatively on public offices, which has resulted in low morale. Also, you're going to read that story on page 2. Again, governors seek cover against impeachment. That story again covered on pages 10 and 11 of the Standard. US Speaker faces ouster of a bill. You're going to read that story on pages 27. And Gachagwa's woes scaling Mount Kenya. That story again covered on page 6. But there's a story here on page 40 on how Man United, whether they will stand and be counted. No, they're playing tonight again and they're going to lose. That story has covered on page 40. There's a guy called Rashford. Rashford is playing like he's never been a footballer. My God. If he'd pass into the box, just that, like the rest of the forwards are doing and the wingers, he would be having maybe 10 goals and 6 assists so far. But he just doesn't want to pass that ball. What is wrong with him? Why does he keep on playing then? Yeah? Anyway, read that story on pages 40. They're playing tonight. Arsenal is also playing tonight. But the comedy is going to be in the Man United game. Please make sure you watch it tonight at 10. Guess what? Take a tiny breather as we come back. We are essentially going straight to your newsroom. Here my producer is complaining. I'm not the one who's writing the newspaper. That story is covered here on page 40 of the Standard. Yes, please read it. Once we come back, straight to your newspapers this morning. Welcome back. Now the Nairobi County Assembly has failed for 1.1 billion shillings, or to account, for the 1.1 billion shillings spent in the financial year 2019-2020 when they appeared before the Public Accounts Committee. A report which the committee has had a mismatch of 60 million, which the committee says was stolen money.
Assembly had a hard time before the Public Account Committee on Monday when they were put to task to explain the expenditure. Presenting the General Auditor report for 2019-2020 financial year, the report, which the committee termed to be inaccurate and uncertified, had an expenditure of 1.1 billion shillings, which they also failed to account for after mismatch of 60 million was accrued. This, the committee says, was stolen money.
Financial statements contain the following errors and discrepancies. Roman 1. The statement of financial assets and liabilities incorrectly reflects Note 13, Note 14 and Note 15 as providing further disclosures on accounts receivables. Outstanding interest, accounts payables, that is deposits and retentions.
Procurement was going on, salary payments were going on, operations of the assembly were going on. Someone must take responsibility. And we cannot shut our eyes to the fact that there were people earning a salary to be custodians of public resources that have been sent to Nairobi County Assembly.
The County National Assembly, however, asked for more time to present a written report. The Assembly was also asked to put to task to defend why they had not presented a report from the Auditor General for the year 2020-2021 financial year after being given 1 year to present the same report.
The clerk not responding to 2020-2021, it automatically showed that there is incompetence somewhere. Somebody is not supposed to be holding the office. A CPA, because this query is supposed to be solved at exit meeting.
In response, the National Assembly says they had sent the committee a written letter, which it was the context of the explanation as to why they were not able to present the report, the letter which the committee says did not receive.
These accounts were being prepared on a very hard circumstance, and I want to believe...
No, Ishana, how do you append your signature? Your signature is here. And that gentleman, how do you convince the Senate that you are fit to hold public office? Yeah.
If I can say, there were some disruptions in the office.
What nature of disruptions?
Change of office. At a point you're in the office, sometimes you're not in the office.
How does that happen? You get letters to be redeployed?
You are deployed to a particular section at a particular point in time.
Were you suspended during that period?
Not yet, Chair.
Mavin Getembe, Lookuptv, Nairobi.
Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza has asked leaders outside Meru County not to interfere with Meru County wrangles. The embattled governor called on the leaders in Meru County to unite for the sake of Meru residents and ensure service delivery.
Governor Kawira Mwangaza finds herself in a familiar yet hostile territory, with a section of members of County Assembly calling for her ouster for the second time in her first year in office. Unlike yesterday when Governor Mwangaza skipped a Thanksgiving service graced by Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, the first-time county chief was today present during the launch of the County Industrial Park, blaming a few political leaders for tribulations while noting that he won't be intimidated despite the impeachment threats.
Hata hii kitu kidogo unasikia Mheshimiwa Waziri, ile kidogo tu unasikia ni few leaders, na tunaomba kwa heshima tusiingiliwe na watu wa nje, tupewe nafasi yetu kama County Government of Meru, tusaidie watu wetu ili niweze kusaidia watu wa Meru, watu zaidi ya 230 ambao walitokezea asubuhi wakapiga kura wakasema mama anatosha.
Trade Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria, however, called on the governor to restrain from getting into a political warpath with other county leaders.
Unajua tulikuwa nawe bunge. Unajua pia wewe upunguza vita. Punguza mimi, unajua kama mimi nilipunguza, hata wewe unaweza punguza vita. So assignment yangu ni moja. Uhesabu maadui wote, nimekupatia 1 week, you reduce them by 50%. Kama sio lazima umalize wote. Usikuwe na unapigana na huyu na huyu na huyu. Sasa kuna chakula ya kupikwa leo na kuna ingine mzungu anasema ya kumarinate upike ujao. Wacha kuweka maadui yako yote pamoja.
Governor Mwangaza continues to champion for her transformative agenda, noting that her administration will continue serving Meru residents with the diligence, with the Trade CS Moses Kuria reiterating that the national government will steer away from Meru politics.
Naona kazi ama muoni kazi? Nina mwito siku ya leo kwa viongozi wote wa Meru County. It is very important for us to understand the role and the duty that God gave us. It is not to fight, it is to work to the people of Meru.
Kwa hivyo mimi niambie viongozi wenu, mimi sina haja yoyote na kuingilia siasa ya Wameru. Na kiongozi wangu mkubwa wangu Rigiji mwenyewe alikuwa hapa jana huko Rale, na akasema mambo ya Meru yaachwe nani? Wameru.
Ian Keitani, Lookuptv.
Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei is now protesting on why the National Dialogue Committee declined to hear his oral submissions on various issues he once addressed through the bipartisan talks. Cherargei, who was hit the headlines for proposing to increase the presidential term limit from the current 5 years to 7, demanded NATCO to open up their doors for any Kenyan to make oral presentations.
In his letter dated September 29, 2023, Cherargei said that the committee had succumbed to emotional blackmail and cowed to parochial political interest, resulting in non-practicing of the principle of natural justice. The latest development comes after NADCO declined a request from Cherargei to physically appear before the committee, saying that they would admit only his submitted memorandum.
On 29, I did a response letter to the National Dialogue Committee, and I have indicated that I have noted with gratitude the contents in letter that was written to me. However, I have serious reservation against the letter, since it is unfortunate that you have succumbed to emotional blackmail and have cowered to parochial political interests, resulting in non-practice of the principles of natural justice. It was my wish to appear before the committee, National Dialogue Committee, to clarify the issue of national importance and interest, and more so on the issue of extension of presidential term limit, among other issues such as.
In his submission, the Nandi lawmaker also wants the institutionalization of the office of the opposition leader, reintroduction of the office of the Prime Minister, constitutional backing of the Constituency Development Fund and Ward Fund, as well as veto powers of the Senate.
I hereby wish to express my dissatisfaction on the committee on my memorandum, which they handle it casually, considering that the matters I have raised have elicited serious concerns among members of the public. And I have further attached my presentation to the perusal of the committee, and this is the letter I've shared in a protest letter to the National Dialogue Committee for taking my issues, which are at shaking and will lead to the constitutional reforms of this country, casually.
In his support for the extension of the presidential term limit, Cherargei argued that the current 5-year mandate is not enough to run a government. Brian Amwai, Lookuptv, Nairobi.
A Nakuru court has given the defense in the botched Finland education program case 60 days to prepare for trial, as 202 witnesses are expected to testify against Uasin Gishu Senator Jackson Mandago and his co-accused. Mandago, through his lawyers, requested to be given 60 days to prepare for trial and peruse the documents furnished by the prosecution.
Early Monday morning, Uasin Gishu Senator Jackson Mandago and his co-accused in the Finland education saga, Joshua Lele and Mesha Krono, made their way to the Nakuru law courts. The trio are accused of misappropriating at least 1.1 billion Kenya shillings, funds meant to finance hundreds of students from Uasin Gishu to further their studies in Finland. However, the prosecution now intends to use at least 202 new witnesses against the three, a move that forced the defense lawyers to request for more time to prepare the defense, with presiding judge Peter Ndege granting them a 60-day period.
Thank you. That there is a number, witnesses number in 202. Obviously, Your Honor, given the size of the documents and the number of witness statements they're offering for the defense for purposes of rights under Article 50, we will require time, Your Honor, to prepare before the elections for hearing date comes.
The request was also necessitated by the prosecution's intention to produce new evidence, which was only made available recently.
The issue of supply of the documents is anchored on the orders which were granted by the court on 17th August 2023, that the documents are to be supplied at their own cost. So once they bear the costs, we will be keen to supply the documents within 2 weeks. As for the time requested for preparation, we do not have an issue with that. We can take directions from the court.
The case is expected to be heard on the 14th of January next year, with the parents and students continuing to call on President William RUTO to intervene and ensure their funds are reimbursed.
Let me go 15th of January next year for further evaluation.
Ian Keitani, Lookuptv.
Former Attorney General Amos Wako now wants the Independent and Electoral Boundaries Commission servers to be made accessible to all Kenyans and everyone as soon as the final declaration of the presidential results are made in a submission to the National Dialogue Committee sitting at the Bomas of Kenya. Wako, who's also the former Busia senator, said a law should be enacted so that it becomes automatic for servers to be opened. As a Stanley Lugaria now reports, the former senator also wants the Senate to be given the authority to approve bills to be discussed in the National Assembly.
As the public participation in the National Dialogue talks reaches home stretch on Monday before its conclusion on Tuesday, the call for creation of more administrative units took center stage. On Monday, former Attorney General Amos Wako appeared before the committee with, among others, a proposal to empower the Senate with authority of approving bills to be discussed in the National Assembly, as well as supporting the creation of opposition and the Prime Minister offices.
Mr. Chairman, your committee can even make proposals for amendment to what extent, and anything that undermines that should not be acceptable. But more important to me is that wananchi, the people, the sovereignty of this country rests in the people. And the people, you have gone to them and you have said that I'm now in this party, these are my programs, and on the basis of that, they have elected you.
The former Busia senator also admitted to a mistake during the formulation of extra counties, where Kitui missed on the opportunity in the process, sentiments concurring with the recommendations of Kitui Senator Enoch Wambua, who claimed the region should be added as a county to bring services closer to the residents.
Argument that there are people that have huge populations and small pieces of land, in my case, does not arise, because then what you lose in landmass, you gain in population.
The Public Service Commission has admitted before the committee with its stand against the sensitive issue of tax increment, suggesting an audit in tax increases such as affordable housing to reduce the burden that continues to be disastrous to those in the employment sector.
The information we have here, this 1/3 has been progressive from time immemorial. I can't remember, I've worked in the civil service for 39 years. I can't remember a time I've been above 1/3. Because every time you finish servicing your mortgage, your car loan, your furniture, SACCO, you name it, you take another one.
Earlier, the Homa Bay Interface Community Health Desk Group, during their submissions, wanted the presidential vote tallying at Bomas abolished, proposing a reduction in tax levies to be done through the National Assembly, while the issue of reducing prices of petroleum products remained top on their list.
Tallying, that is what brings me to tell you about this. We have 47 counties, and this will bring the aspect part of the electoral colleges. So if we have like 64,000 polling stations in the entire republic, and presidential A has got 50,000, definitely he is supposed to be declared the president.
The group want help entrenched in the constitution, calling on government officials who pursue higher studies not to be funded by the body. The meeting is expected to come to an end tomorrow after receiving proposals and presentations from Kenya Kwanza and Azimio, before retreating to draft a report to be presented at the two houses.
Look at the dailies this morning. There's one story that is synonymous across all of them. RUTO now says, this expensive travel, I'm gonna cut it. And then the talks of the Bomas of Kenya are at limbo. Azimio side missed the hearing yesterday. Let's talk about what it is you're waking up to this morning in your dailies. Shortly after this, we'll be joined by Josephat Kamanya. Shortly.
Infinity Industrial Park is one of the largest private industrial parks located along Eastern Bypass, Nairobi. which provides modern infrastructure for smooth operations for industries and business enterprises. Infinity Industrial Park offers world-class amenities and facilities with wide roads, a police station, a power substation, fire station, public transport stage, hospital, and shopping mall. In addition, Infinity Industrial Park also offers CCTV cameras, 24-hour private armed security patrol, sewer, water, fiber optic cable, and 3-phase power connection, added to public utility, canteen, and dining areas. Sail on the golden opportunity to invest in Infinity Industrial Park fully serviced warehouses at a special price of 3,569 Kenyan shillings per square foot. For more inquiries, visit our website infinityindustrialpark.com.
Hapa panajulikana kama Napetao. Hapa tumekuja na zaidi ya chakula 500 ili kuhakikisha wakazi hapa angalau wanapokea kitu cha kutia mdomoni. Unavyoangalia hali ya anga sehemu hii, jamani, kuna ukame. Wakati wowote ambapo wewe unacheza loto, 25% ya pesa ambazo unatumia unakuja kufanikisha shughuli kama hii.
Thank you for your help. Together, we are changing lives.
So the story we're telling today is a story of passion in practice that grows into business.
We have partnered with the Youth Fund, talk to as many youth as possible and work with them, hold their hand.
It is an expose of captains who have decided to take on challenges in different sectors and industries within the country.
My mentors had also not started as CEOs. They grew up and they showed me how they grew in the organizations. So that's what motivated me to actually do international business. And it was a good experience.
As an individual, support in bridging the care gap, part of me also to offer a solution. I want to leave this world a better place than I found it.
This is the Captain's Arena. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiage. This is the morning drift. Well, this morning there's just a lot that is happening in your dailies, and we're going to take a couple of minutes then to put it into proper perspective so you do know exactly what it is that you are waking up to this morning. And joining us in the studio right now is one Josephat Kamanya. How are you doing, sir?
Thank you very much, Simba. I'm good.
Happy to have you around.
Yeah, thank you.
There's just a lot that we have to look at, and I'm going to pick on these dailies this morning so we can then make sense of the top stories.
Indeed.
Let's begin with the Daily Nation. It's the same story, by the way, that has been covered also on the Standard this morning. I'm going to start with the first story here, which essentially has been covered on both dailies. Governors seek cover against impeachment.
Yeah.
That particular story has been covered on pages 10 and 11. And on the Daily Nation, they're calling it Review Impeachment Law, while Guru urges after winning another term as COG boss.
Yes.
Here's the thing. Do we need to review those laws? Josephat?
Well, I think, and good morning to our viewers. If you look at our constitution,
yes,
this is the third term for any governor who was elected. I mean, they only served 2 terms and then they transitioned. And now, looking at the first term, especially if there are some counties that were rocked by problems of impeachment, one was Embu. If you remember Governor Wambora, I think, we don't even know how he survived for 10 years. But his impeachment was always never going through. But then you look at another county like Kiambu, remember, Waititu, the second governor, was impeached.
Yes.
Successfully so. But if you look at the grounds of impeachment, they were more political than function and delivery based. So when they talk of reviewing the process and the rules and the laws of how a governor can be impeached, it is to try and sometimes, I would imagine, take out the witch hunting, whereby you realize if a governor falls out with a few politicals in his county, they fuel the MCAs through the assembly, then it goes to the Senate, and not on basis of performance or violation of any law, but on basis of politics. So if they can separate the politics and from function and duties of a governor, then define that clearly, how that process of impeachment still remains, because there needs to be a window, because that gives an opportunity to call back the leaders who are elected, because an impeachment is a callback. You're not fit for office anymore based on this, that, and the other. So it needs to remain clear. I think our constitution is not static. It is something we have to keep on reviewing on a need basis. And I mean, I'm glad we also, it's time for the review, you know, not just the boundary review, but the entire constitution, the dispensation.
But Professor, at this time, it's funny how Waiguru has won that particular second term as CSG polls.
Yes.
Good. Then the first motion is we need protection from these MCAs. Guess who's facing impeachment at this time as well? Kabira Mwangaza, again for the very second time.
Yes.
With the Meru governor.
Yes.
I mean, at what point we say, let the county governments run themselves the way it is, the way the constitution envisioned. And don't we have checks and balances? Because we've seen majority of these governors have essentially been saved by the Senate to say so, isn't it?
Yeah.
So can't we just let the law operate the way it is?
Well, first of all, congratulations to Governor Waiguru. I think she's a leader of note if the governors have found her fit to continue with the leadership of the COG. And I do agree with you. It's about time we let the counties be, and we have a proper demarcation of the national government and the county government. And remember, there has been this agitation of 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling. It's about the resources following the function, so that we will try to walk away from politicizing the functions of a government, because we have a lot of devolved services that are really not getting to the regular mwananchi. But that cannot happen until governors have the autonomy to operate. And again, we also need a very strong Senate, because what happens when you have a rogue governor? If you have a governor who falls out of law, who operates, you know, who is accused of abuse of office, what happens? So we still need a strong Senate. I still feel, much as they're seeking protection, we need to have them held accountable by certain laws, whereby if certain violations are certified and confirmed, then the impeachment has to be an option.
Does it?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at it from this perspective, Joseph, and for the sake of our audience this morning.
Yes.
The law is very clear. The impeachment process from the county levels would essentially be started by the MCAs. Once to that, the senators will sit down and essentially audit that impeachment process based on law. What have they presented? Is this essentially what the law states is in accordance with the law? If they feel that indeed it is not in accordance with the law, or there is no proper evidence as why a certain governor has been impeached, then and only then would they make their pronouncement. You like to think it is a bulletproof process. The Constitution has ring-fenced it. It's not like once the MCAs impeach you, then you're out immediately. No, the senators are there as well to look at you. Is that not enough? We don't need to review.
Evidently, it's not enough, because it should be enough. Because again, if you're a governor and you've been elected into office, you know your mandate to the people of your county. And it is in your interest, actually, for any governor in this country to work with their county assembly to work with the MCAs because they are the representatives of the people. These are the people you need to work with. They are the people who are going to oversight you. They are people who are going to bring any motion from your localities. And these motions that they pass in the county assembly are what you should build on to deliver to the people. Because if you have efficient service delivery, it will build to the public policy of the nation, whereby every service that is required to be delivered by the government, because again, we are still one country, one nation, one government. We just have different functions, the county and the national. It is in your interest as a governor to work with the county assembly. If you fall out for whatever reason, and still I don't understand why as a governor you should not be able to incorporate the MCAs in your programs, then something is amiss. Then there has to be a way before the MCAs take you to Senate. That motion at the county assembly needs to be well deliberated so that we also avoid wastage of resources for the public.
Does it?
Yeah.
Let me give you a case in point of one Kawira Mwangaza's impeachment.
Yes.
Where you have predominantly, maybe say for 1 or 2 MCAs who are saying she needs to be out. And then that particular case reaches at the Senate, and then the Senate sits down and says, no, not watertight.
Yeah.
If we are now going to change that, then aren't we changing the way that county governments operate? What you're saying there, Josephat, is that every other governor should work properly with the MCAs, make sure that they are in line with whatever it is that he or she wants to implement. Now we're saying we need protection, but you're well protected. Josephat, what protection do you need as a governor? I mean, the senators are there.
What I have gathered, Simba,
yes,
of late, because we just 1 year into government.
That's it.
And there was a lot of hope, expectation and promise, both from the governors and the MCAs, even them as they campaigned, they had their own manifestos to their electorate. A lot of people do not understand the functions of an MCA vis-a-vis of the governor. The initial dispensation, the first governors who came into this devolved government, they really worked together with the MCAs. And MCAs were seen to be launching projects, yet they do not have a budget. So what they're seeking, and because I've had this conversation going on before they got into this yesterday and the day before, is that the governors are feeling pressured and manipulated by the MCAs. If you don't give us this, remember there was a promise on the World Development Fund. I think it's only Murang'a County that has effected that. I think every MCA was given about 20 million to run projects in their own ward. Of course, it's managed. But most of the other governors, largely so, have not implemented that. And what the MCAs are agitating for is ability to function and to work for their communities, to launch projects. So now the governors are saying, but that is not your responsibility by law. Hence, even if they build a motion on those shaky grounds of impeaching the governor, once it gets to Senate, the Senate tells the MCAs, but this is not your job. This is the governor's job. So we have to have proper definition of roles so that you'll know who is overstepping and when. Again, it is in your own interest. It's just a call for wisdom as a governor. Put your house in order. Because the more noise you have, the more you'll not be able to deliver. Remember, it's the same MCAs who sit at the assembly who are going to approve your finance bill. Should they not, then you'll not be able to work with your budget within the year. So it affects your program and how, the financial allocation. So it really calls for collaboration and coordination.
Yes.
And we need that across board.
Here's what I want to figure out, Josephat. In as much as these county governments are run and achieved, you'd like to think that if you are from county A and you went into government on party A, then you enjoy majority support from that particular party in that county government. If we're going to go by the voting patterns in this country, case in point, you would like to think that Kawira Mwangaza will have a lot of UDA support within that particular county government. Somebody like Anne Waiguru would have a lot of UDA MCAs within that particular county. If we are voting on party lines, even in the county governments, why would a governor fall out with the MCAs?
Mwangaza got in, Governor Mwangaza got in as independent.
Yes.
So there is a perceived difference because she's from that lack of a party and these are the UDA compatriots.
Yes.
But we also have to look at the bigger picture. It is generally not the MCAs who drive the impeachment motion, realistically speaking. There are always some political hands behind that. And in some cases, remember, if you look at Busia, the deputy governor has been accused of the same. And Deputy Governor Governor Orengo, they're fallen out. You know, like just last week when CS Kuria was launching the aggregation project, the deputy governor was not in presence because of a political fallout with the governor. Yes. So it is MCAs are just the front of the impeachment process, because if they don't embrace it, it doesn't take off. So whoever has anything against the governor, the best grounds, the best people to work with, the foot soldiers that you need are the MCAs. And remember, much as the MCAs may be from the same party with the governor, like in this time, if you look at Kiambu, most of them are from the UDA. If you look at Meru, personal interests also have a space in this process. Because as an MCA, if projects are not launched in your area, if the governor does not empower you to roll out whatever programs the national government is bringing down to the people, if by any chance you are blindsided, yes, you have a backlash that you have to deal with. Because your people have an expectation. You are the representative of our ward. If you go to the county assembly, any motion, should it be a bill, should it be levies, you should be the one spearheading that. Now, if the governor comes out and says, this is what you're going to do as a county, and then there is no agreement with the county assembly, there is that fallout. So the protection they are really seeking is not just from the MCAs, but it's also from the politicals. Remember, there are people who continue campaigning immediately after the election. So if there was a governor aspirant who felt, I did not make it, I need to continue with this process. And the best way to bring down any politician is to make sure they don't deliver, especially in these cases of county executives, the governors. If they're hampered in delivery unit, then it becomes a breeding ground for the campaign, for the opponents. And that's, I think, if they're seeking protection along work line, but not political survival, I would support that. But we have to have a balance, because again, there has to be a way we can call back any leader who is not delivering.
Pretty much. Just for the sake of time, I would like us to move into the next bigger story, by the way, that has been covered on the Daily Nation this morning, and you're going to get that story on page 7. And this is what they're saying: ruling Kenya Kwanza and opposition Azimio La Umoja representatives failed to make their presentations at Bomas as the rival factions played out a game of wait and see with each other. That particular story, by the way, has been covered on page 7. And the Daily Nation is saying Bomas talks in limbo as Kenya Kwanza Azimio keep hearing. And guess who was complaining this morning for his proposals not getting read? It is Gerard Gay, who said, I don't understand why that particular team at the Bomas of Kenya did not listen to or consider my proposals. So the thinking is that up to now, that you and I can actually make proposals to that particular team at the Bomas of Kenya. When we are counting down the days that are left for that team, it is 20-something days. That's less than a month, Josephat, and we're getting headlines of they failed to appear. Wait and see. What do you have? So we can also see how to come in. Are these talks a limbo, Josephat? And do you think that we're going to get something substantive from the talks at the Bomas of Kenya?
You know, we look at these talks in it's a double-edged sword.
Yes.
One, it was meant to bring down the political upheaval.
Yes, sir.
Remember the days of Maandamano. And I think everybody's happy that Maandamano is behind us. And everybody in the nation seems to agree that instead of going to the streets, why can't we just have a more democratic conversation and engagement on the issues that are ailing you as the opposition and the concerns we may have as the government. And hence, the bilateral talks took off. Now, the flip side of that is that the opposition is also seemed, or rather seemingly or evidently, seeking a way into government through the bilateral talks. And now that brings a bit of concern, because what is the essence of having an election? The Kenyans woke up on the 9th of August last year. Everybody who voted 30-something percent voted for the government, 30-something percent for the opposition, and 30-something percent of the registered voters did not vote. That process was concluded conclusively when the president was sworn in.
No, sir.
We need to move on and allow our political process to mature. If we have lost an election, that's it. We cannot have this notion that if you lose and you're number 2, then we can move to the sides, to Bomas or any other location, and start some negotiations on how we're going to do some power sharing. And the president has come out strongly saying, hakuna mkate nusu, not in this government. Kenyan spoke, and we have to respect it. It is the rule of law, and that's why you have an electoral process. But now coming back to the Bomas talks, I mean, the senator had a bizarre proposal of extending the presidential term to 7 years. That's not a conversation we need to be having now. And more so, even the president has come out clearly saying he's not interested in such a conversation. The constitution says it's 5 years, 2 terms. That's what we are sticking to.
Even if the president says that, that particular team of the Bomas of Kenya might not even want to listen to the president or any other person who's saying that we are not interested in this conversation, because now that becomes their issue, just right. And even as we talk about these talks essentially being the opposition trying to sneak into the government, there's so many issues. If you might allow me, and I'm sorry for cutting you short, there's a story here on the Standard, where they're saying save us from salary shame. Civil servants are now asking the team at the Bomas of Kenya to actually present this as a bigger discussion issue. So it's not just about the Azimio coalition now. Those talks at the Bomas of Kenya have morphed into something else. It's about other issues that Kenyans feel should also be brought to the table, like what Cherargei is saying. Other Kenyans have also proposed increasing counties, subdividing counties, and Kiambu is quite big. Give us another county as well in Kiambu region. So away from the conversation of this is the opposition trying to sneak their way in, there are many other issues that have come from that, which that particular dialogue committee is now faced with, that they have to look at these issues and give us a draft document that's going to go back to the Senate and the National House.
If you remember, at the onset of the talks, the Kenya Kwanza team had a proposal that let's televise this conversation because it is for Kenyans, by Kenyans, and about Kenyans. But then that we only succeed to get the snippets of what is happening. And I do agree. Right now, we don't need to be talking about power sharing. We don't need to talk about, you're the opposition, you're the government. No, the process of election is done. We need to focus on the economy of the country and address these issues. It is true, civil servants have a concern, and a legitimate one, because there has been an increase on levies and taxation and all that. That is not reciprocated when it comes to payment. There is no salary increase. So the concerns are right, that, if there's anything that needs to be done for us to be shielded, either, we come into a prorated salary increase, or we find a way of harmonizing this collection from, because there's all these statutory deductions, the payee, the NSSF, the housing fund and all that. So the civil servants do have a concern. On the other hand, the fuel prices have skyrocketed. They are at an all-time high as we speak today. And we must realize that our production industry is fuel-based. And that's why you see the moment fuel goes up, bus fare for the matatus is hiked, and food from the shelves, the prices go high. And remember, it is the same civil servants from the same salary. After all these deductions, then you have to buy things at an expensive price. So I agree. These are the issues we need to be looking at. The cost of living needs to come down. It's not going to be magical, but incremental. And you need to have now systems and strategies and programs towards that, because you need to have a safety net for every Kenyan, whether here in the urban or in the rural areas, so that one, if we improve our public health, the cost of running our health ministry goes down. If we increase the number of school-going kids safely, because there is attendance and there is completion, people who go to school and complete, we're going to have a very skilled labor force. in time. And then, even these issues of recruitment to terror groups is going to fade away. So there's a lot that come into just focusing on what ministerial jobs there are already as a government in terms of education, of health, clean water,
Yes.
These are the issues the Bomas Committee needs to be talking about. Now is not a time to talk about any political process. It's fine, we are due for the boundary review. That is correct, constitutionally we had been given 10 years, and I think by February next year,
Yes.
we should have made a decision whether we are going to a referendum or not. And if you're going to a referendum, what are the issues that needs to be put into question for every Kenyan to participate? And I would urge every Kenyan who is really concerned about their own welfare, if we will be going to a referendum,
Yes.
let's interrogate the questions therein.
That's it, isn't it? But just for fine, that every other person gets you. So when you read into this particular issue of, the Kenya Kwanza side and the Azimio side failing to appear to make their presentations on a very important process in the country.
Wow.
It's a good thing that you're saying, majority of these issues are going to go to a constitutional change process. Are we going to sit here and pretend that maybe this might not benefit the government as well? Largely, it will benefit the government in this sense. I mean, there are questions, there are even petitions that are sitting at the High Court challenging the position of Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi. The courts are fighting members of parliament on the entrenchment of the CDF kitty as a fund that they need to control. The office of the opposition, if it's going to be anything, has to essentially go to a referendum. So when you're looking at those particular issues, then you're left with two, which is essentially, could be three or four. There's the stopping of encroachment of political parties in the country from the Kenya Kwanza side. There's also inclusivity in the running of the government. There's also the IEBC reconstitution.
Yes.
Only 3 or 4 issues that essentially would not need us to go back to a referendum. That failure to appear, and you'd like to think that the president is watching it closely as well. Any other person who's interested in that process is watching it closely. Are we saying that somebody somewhere, Josephat, knows that at the end of the day, some of these issues you're presenting here are just a by the way? There are only 4 issues that we are going to agree on, then the rest of them are going to take us to a referendum. So there's no need to hurry. Guys, we don't got to be there. IEBC doesn't need for us to sit down and talk about how we're going to do it.
Well, I would want to believe that the Bomas Committee has a disciplinary committee, because if you've been put there by your party or by the side that you're representing, I mean, it's an obligation you should honor. Show up, represent, make your submissions, and listen to other people's submissions, because that's why it's a dialogue. But if somebody somewhere knows that this is just chasing a tail, then there's no need. We're just wasting Kenyans' time.
Somebody said the president essentially gave the opposition a rope to hang on, in a sense of, at the end of the day, I as the president would give you whatever it is that you want. I'll take you to a referendum. I'll have you supporting me. Because do you envision a point where the opposition will not be supporting a referendum when that is the only way to introduce whatever it is that we're talking about here?
And that's why I'm saying we cannot leave that process of a referendum to the politicals.
Yes.
Because, for instance, if we enforce the office of the leader of opposition, how does that help the regular Kenyan? We must really come out stronger than we did in 2010.
Yes.
And interrogate whatever referendum questions will be posed to us as questions. Because again, it is not the prerogative of the president to decide whether we are having a referendum or not. The due process dictates. So unless now the Kenyans agree we don't need a referendum, that's the only time you're going to operate within this current dispensation. But in terms of review, we are due for that. Whoever is the president. And then it's therein where Kenyans have to agree, what do you want? But I think, fine, the Bomas talks, like I said earlier, was a way of managing the political tension that we have, or that we had, because it really wasn't helping anybody, and it was about to hold the country hostage. And if, even as a president, you're not able to deliver and to start rolling out, because you need a plan, you need a project, and then you need a program, then you can channel resources. If the political atmosphere is as hot as it were you're not able to launch any plan. You're not able to roll out any programs. Therefore, there was a need to stabilize the political tempo and bring it down. And that's why everybody agreed. Because remember, even the opposition, they need a country to lead should they get into office. They need a government to oppose for their own political relevance. So if there is no stability, and then of course the loss of life doesn't really help anybody.
Yes.
And I don't believe it is right for any Kenyan to lose life because of politics.
Yes.
It doesn't matter on which side of the political ideology you come from. Life should be saved at all costs. So I would want to believe that these talks are the bombers. The bare minimum, we should have a report that captures the interest of the Kenyans. The issues that people, because they opened the window and they said you can come out,
you can come up with whatever
and
issue
tell us,
that you need.
So no one should be blocked.
Yes, but here's the thing, Joseph, just quickly, take a minute to respond to this, because there are two other issues I want us to look at.
Yes.
Have we sort of lost plot as to why we went to the bombers of Kenya? We went to the bombers of Kenya because of the cost of living, because of REBC, because of the 2022 general elections, essentially, and the way a multi-party democracy was being viewed by the opposition. The opposition had 5 issues. The government came up with other 5 issues and said, well, some of the issues that you have, we agree, we're going to talk about them. Remember, Basanjo came in and it was agreed that, well, we're going to talk about all the issues. Why did we not ring-fence? These are the issues that we were supposed to receive proposals on. Josephat, all of a sudden, it became, even you, Josephat, you would have proposed that the president needed 15 years and they would have listened to you. So now all of a sudden that small team at the bombers of Kenya has so many issues to go through, to the point that when you look at where the conversation is, it's even moved away from the issues that took us to the bombers of Kenya. Was that a mistake, Josephat? Was that a mistake?
I wouldn't say it was a mistake, because remember, the essence of the principal foundation of these bilateral talks was electoral justice.
That's it.
That was the basis.
That's it.
And that being the foundation, one, of course, who oversees our election here is a commission, the independent commission, the IEBC. So that had to be a topic of discussion.
Yes.
And that's why you keep on hearing, oh, open the servers, do this and the other. Then the other concern is, since we have a government, it's a matter of public policy. The government should deliver to its people. Therefore, the cost of living had to feature in that process. But then it went on and opened up now into these bizarre proposals of extending the presidential term, which is really should not be a subject when it comes to these bilateral talks.
But then we allowed that.
But then I agree, it was allowed. So
yes.
They need to manage the process. Because again, it cannot be, you say it very well, Simba, that we have 20-something days, less than a month. They need to conclude this process. So if by them limiting some people from making their submission is in the interest of time, fine. But I just hope the senator is the one person we have realized, or who was reportedly loudly so, that was not allowed to come in to make his submissions. I hope there are no other people who have vital issues that would benefit Kenyans and propel this process forward who are being locked out.
It's funny how it's not just the 7-year proposal that he had. He had other issues as well that were really important that he wanted to make submissions to that particular committee. And the fact that we're here saying that it wasn't allowed essentially paints a completely different picture of that process that is ongoing at the bombers of Kenya. But for the sake of time, but there's a story here that I want us to look at, and the 2 stories on how Gachagua now is facing wars scaling Mount Kenya. The people are saying, well, he's no longer the kingpin, and every time he speaks, he doesn't have proper following that somebody can rely on for the 2027 term. Just 1 minute before we look at RUTO stopping unnecessary trouble within the government. Do you believe Gachagua is a man that you can count on for the 2027 central vote, which is very important to any person who wants to win elections in the country?
For anybody who understands the politics of our country, a deputy president is a powerful office. Is a person of influence, even regionally so. The deputy president comes from the mountain region, the central province. And yes, he yields significant support. He was able to campaign and rally people behind the president, and we won the election. So what is not fair currently is to start a conversation about 2027, because 2027 is way too far.
You can start a conversation about him.
Yes, or what if you see even 2027? We don't know. I don't think he's going to vie as a president. Chances are, the president still runs for presidency, and he's still the president. Then the team that delivers a win. Hopefully,
if you were in the president's shoes this morning, when you look at Gachagua in the view of the 2027 election, do you have better alternatives around you from that particular region now, as it currently stands? I will put you on the spot. Moses Kuria is presenting himself as a man who's commanding the talk and the direction of the Mount Kenya region.
Well, the president in his wisdom, remember, he chose the deputy president Gachagua.
Yes.
And there was Kindiki, who was also a candidate. I would want to believe, and all these other people are there. CS Kuria was still present, and any other person who is being propped up was still present when the president was making his choice. So in respecting the president's wisdom, I know he's going to make the right choice, whether he's making it today or in 2027. So let's leave it to that, because there is no need to start castigating who is a kingpin, who is not. Right now, the people from the mountain region, all they care about is the economics of the region, the uplifting of the agricultural sector, the job creation, the eradication of the illicit alcohol that is taking away the youth, who are going to be the voters actually in 2027. The young mothers who are crying they don't have husbands because the boys are all taken away by alcohol and drugs and so many other social vices. So right now, no one is talking about election 2027. It might be a conversation we could start having in 2025, going about 2 years to the election. But right now, let the president enjoy his presidency. Let the deputy president be the deputy president.
But I like the corner you're taking in this particular issue. Last conversation this morning, I hope you take 2 minutes on this. President Dr. William RUTO has come in and said, I don't understand how we're spending so much. And that's after we ran a story yesterday in the media about this government, despite them crying about how broke they are into wanton spending. A lot of expenditure that's going into this government. Well, the president apparently has been listening, comes out and says, hey, bwana, if you're going out, mnaenda wawili. Hii mambo ya itio entourage mzima, if a governor is going out, then 2 people from the county government, because we have to start preaching that particular water that we're talking about, because the way it is that we're preaching water and drinking wine. This time around, we'll preach that water and drink that water to the last minute. He's not the first president to do this. Josephat. You have to go back again. All the presidents before him, Uhuru Kenyatta, Mwai Kibaki. You have got to go back. All of them have come up with this headline. This headline is not new at all.
No, it's not.
Do you think he's going to win it?
Well, you see, every president seeks to increase revenue collection. And one way of doing that is saving on the expenditure. So when he says he's going to cut off or cut down the non-essential travels, he's just trying to increase revenue collection. The county government were duly advised by the president that you need to go back and increase your own on-source revenue collection. Because if you look at the county government, I think less than 10 counties out of the 47 hit about 40% of on-source revenue collection. Now, if you're collecting this less and then you're spending this more on non-essential travels, it does not make sense. And a lot of county travels also have been cut down. Most of some of the wrangles you're witnessing between the governors and the county assembly members, the MCAs, is because they said these trips are not happening anymore. They are not essential, they are not important. And remember, when the MCAs travel out of the county, they get mileage, they get the stipend, the allowance, and they have to collect that at the end of every month or every quarter. And it goes sometimes as high as more than the salary that the MCAs earn. So you're almost doubling the earnings of any servant, any elected official, even the MPs when they travel outside the country. That one trip earns them more than the monthly pay that they receive from the government. That's a fact. Check the numbers. So when the president is speaking to that, and remember, how many MPs do we have? How many MCAs do we have? How many servants who say they're going for benchmarking? And some of these meetings, we are a virtual nation. We are a virtual world. We can do Zoom meetings. We don't have to make unnecessary travel. So it is a way of trying to increase the revenue collection by cutting down expenditure, because a coin saved is a coin earned.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Guess what? We'll be looking at those numbers, then we have a look at them, because the question of who goes out, who doesn't go out, to the point that how many times you also gotta go out is a conversation that you need to have if you're essentially then going to say that we're coming in to cut 1 ton of expenditure, because it looks that counties and government officials are finding a way around these rules of expenditure that we come up with. It's just going to be a wait and see. But as it is only 2. If you want to go out, it's only 2. That's it. No entourage. So probably we will be saying that from the president as well. We wait and see, isn't it? Hizo magari zinakuangu kunjiani ni mingi bwana, unashangaa ai hii mafuta yote na mnasema hamna pesa. Anyway, we take a side breather right here on the morning drift. Once we come back, then let's talk about women in politics. We do have Senator Gloria Orwoba just coming in shortly then, so we can look at women in politics at a time when we're saying that the likes of Waiguru again are now the COG, and Mwangaza facing wars in a county of impeachment. Where are we in as much as women affairs is concerned in the country? Once we come back, just for thank you very much for being around, man. Pleasure speaking to you.
Are you a civil servant and looking for a financial breakthrough? You can now apply